Well, welcome back again this week, which is the fourth installment of the sort of adding to, if you will, the information that Fox had a few weeks ago on some key subjects. This week we're going to be talking about, as Fox puts it, examine the administration's plan to surrender control of the internet. Well, first of all, I have a problem with words like control, governance, that sort of thing by government. Because what it says in the Constitution of the United States is, in the First Amendment, just to refresh your memory, it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press. And then it goes on from there. But you see, the thing is that it would have been nice if they would have put regulate as well as law in the bill, because regulating is the same as law. It's enforced like it's a law and that sort of thing. However, as I pointed out before, and I want to reiterate, is that freedom of speech and of the press were the only two forms of communication that we had during the period of ratifying and then adding to the Constitution of the United States. So they were protecting by specific things those two forms of communication. Now, every form of communication that's been invented since this time is regulated under the federal government. Came the telegraph, the telephone, radio, television, on and on and on and on, is regulated and controlled by the federal government, completely in violation of the original intent of our founders when they wrote these things and added them to the Constitution. Speaking of telegraph, you know, everybody is upset over Obama or Bush or whatever over the idea of, you know, spying on American citizens without warrants and that sort of thing, a violation of the Fourth Amendment, supposedly. And it really is, but it's also a violation of the First. You know, they bring into the equation NSA and all sorts of spying agencies that are looking at the American public. But you know, I've noticed that Fox and none of these individuals ever go back and tarnish the figure of Abraham Lincoln in this discussion, because he was the first one, his administration was the first one that spied on individuals in the telegraph, for instance, by tapping telegraph lines without any warrants. They did it wholesale. The only time anybody got upset over it was when they found that these spies were being spied on themselves by other spies within the administration, listening in to their conversations and the official business going out over the telegraph lines. Some of it private, some of it government, some of it Army, whatever. This was done wholesale by the Lincoln administration. So let's not forget, that is the beginning point of government surveillance over private citizens under the Lincoln administration. Well, now we're seeing that the flap is over the idea that the Obama administration has announced that it is going to relinquish control over the Internet Corporation for assigned names and numbers. And they were going to already hold a number of meetings this year on an international scale to talk about a number of things, such as nuclear security and a summit. Another one is the World Conference of Indigenous Peoples, the Group of Eight Summit, UN Climate Change Conference, and everything else. And then they came along with the future of Internet governance. Now, here's that word again, Internet governance. They're worried that the United States should relinquish this control to the world, for the world to be able to govern the Internet. And they're talking in all of the various speeches by the Russians, the Chinese, the Indians, Brazil, and it was hosted, by the way, in Sao Paulo, Brazil this last week. that it is an international consortium that has to control the internet. Well, that worries me a lot, particularly when you've got people from China and Russia there, and then weighing in as host is, of course, the lady from Brazil, the president, Rousseff, who is a former communist terrorist leader, who now is a respectable-looking woman as president of Brazil, who just happened last year to attend the Communist Party meeting in Brazil and compliment the communists at a rousing, cheerful assembly on their work towards bringing communism to Brazil and the world. She hasn't left her roots, ladies and gentlemen. She's just put on a nice business suit, got a new do, and sort of like other people I could mention around the world, at any rate. The thing is that in this conference, they mean to control the internet internationally under the United Nations. The thing is, we don't even want that kind of control by our own government. We just have to have laws that guarantee that the private sector is maintaining its private entity, if you will, being able to function in privacy, being able to do what's necessary in any free enterprise situation. We don't want control from our own government, let alone Russia or China. Control by government over free speech, free communication is not right in the sense of the original intent of our founding fathers. They said that's wrong. You can't have it. But here we are, we're arguing over who gets to control the internet, whether it's our government or whether it's some other. But if it's our government, that violates the Constitution, the original intent of the Constitution. And that's part of the problem that you see in these debates relative to who gets to control. It's not who gets, it's nobody should. Now, there are a lot of things that are on the internet that I find bad, pornography, etc., etc. But in almost every instance of something that is rotten on the internet, there are state laws to cover those things if they leave the privacy, for instance, of a guy's computer in his living room or whatever. Those things can be taken care of by normal criminal law. You don't have to have new law when it comes to a lot of these things. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute, what about child pornography and everything online? Well, it isn't the fact that it's online, it's the fact that it's even being produced. The act itself, where it's being produced, should be prosecuted. It doesn't matter how you communicate it, it's a matter of the fact that it was produced and instigated and a crime was committed in those instances. That's the problem. Take care of it there. You can use the internet to trace it back, obviously, but at any rate, if a crime is being committed. But these are criminal acts, and we've got to make sure that free speech does not become a criminal act by protecting free speech, not who controls the internet itself. And if there are these things that need to be done, they shouldn't be done any higher than a state level. Why is that? Now, I know they cross lines and everything else, but so do a lot of other things. The reason you don't want it beyond state control is because it will mean a national control, and that means a national policing, which means a national police. The FBI grew a lot because of prohibition, because it was a federal law. It went from being an investigatory organization to an organization with police powers because of prohibition. And that was not the original intent of the FBI. It was to help local police departments in investigating, but not with arrest powers and that sort of thing. So when we talk about moral things, always remember that if it becomes a national crime, for instance, it means a national policing and a national police to do it. At any rate, that's pretty much the message that I have in this regard, is it's not a matter of who controls, it's a matter of it shouldn't be controlled at all. It should be free and open. There will always be misuses of things in freedom. That's the way it is. In fact, freedom is insecurity, isn't it? It's the exact opposite of security. Freedom is insecurity. The freedom to do what you can in an insecure world. You assume the responsibility for your actions in an insecure world. It's freedom. We always want this security. We want the blanket to cover everything we do. And some people think we should do it even over the internet. The government should take control. Government should monitor it. Government should control it. It's not who or which government, it's government itself that is the enemy of free enterprise, the enemy of free speech, etc. in today's world. Until next week, when we get back to talking about current events, we'll see you then.